Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today, continuing my trend of talking about Kiss records, I'm going to talk about 2012's Monster. So this is only one of two records based around Kiss's final, or as far as we know, final lineup, a lineup that was together for the better part of 2 decades, but yet isn't really part of the Kiss recorded canon. To summarize the history, Kiss the band has always been centered around its two main singer-songwriters, singer-guitarist Paul Stanley and singer-bassist Gene Simmons. However, the roles of lead guitarist and drummer have rotated between various characters through the years. The original and most famous drummer and lead guitarist for the band were Peter Criss and Ace Frehley, respectively. Criss was eventually replaced by a drummer named Eric Carr, and Frehley by Vinnie Vincent, then briefly Mark St. John, and then Bruce Kulick, before Peter and Ace then attempted to make a comeback into the band that lasted for one album and a string of concerts. When Criss and Frehley were replaced for the final time, they were replaced with lead guitarist Tommy Thayer and drummer Eric Singer. Thayer and Singer, I'm not sure if session musicians is the right word for them, but these were guys who'd had various roles in the music industry, who had had success playing with bands, but weren't really famous, celebrity type musicians. And the choice to let them in the band was kind of saying, hey, you guys are not just people who lucked into this band. You earned the role. Paul and Gene weren't really getting along with Ace and Peter, and they felt like they should give their roles to two people they got along with and they felt had earned it musically and were not just legacy parts of the band. What was interesting, though, about adding Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer to the band is that, unlike in the past where new members of the band were given new makeup or not given makeup at all because the band went through a prolonged period of not wearing their traditional makeup, Thayer and Singer were told to wear the makeup previously worn by Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, with Paul Stanley explaining that he'd decided that the fans weren't actually interested in the people in the band, but in the characters they embodied. And even though, as far as I know, the characters represented by these makeup weren't really detailed personas, there's no real specificity to the Star Child or the Demon, they're just the makeup that Paul and Gene wear. Nonetheless, they decided in this final iteration of the band that it was important to have the Spaceman and the Catman present, and it didn't matter that they weren't the original Spaceman and Catman. So anyway, this final version of Kiss made two albums. There's 2009's Sonic Boom, which I am yet to listen to, but I have listened to 2012's Monster. So let's talk about, without further ado, what this record actually sounds like. The first track on this record, and I think the one Paul Stanley most wants to be a latter-day Kiss hit, is called Hell or Hallelujah. Now, this song obviously has a great title, but the strange thing about it is it tonally never feels like a full-on hell or a full-on hallelujah. It's always kind of straddling the line between the two. When I look at the lyrics, and I'm coming off having just read Paul Stanley's autobiography, it seems to be about embracing divorce, or at least a breakup, the sense that, yeah, you've gone through a tough thing, but now you're free. It's a song about the kind of pretend happiness of ignoring all the pain before and just moving on, trying to embrace your freedom. And as such, as I said, it never quite is a fully happy song because it's a song about suppressed sadness, but it's a song about successfully suppressing the sadness. So overall, I don't think this one quite works because it just strikes this very in-between tone that, maybe gets at a truth about human feeling, but it's not a catchy or resonant song in the right way. Track number 2 is called The Wall of Sound. This is a song title that unsurprisingly describes the sound of the actual song and more broadly the sound of the album as a whole. The Wall of Sound is associated with the important, though deeply troubled music producer Phil Spector, but it recreates Phil Spector's sound purely with the hard rock instruments, electric guitars, bass, and drums, whereas Phil Spector's songs would have been characterized by orchestral instruments, bells. It often sounds like a really soupy music box. So think that soupy sound, but in a purely hard rock context. Lyrically, the words to A Wall of Sound are about worshiping rock and roll. And kind of like Hell or Hallelujah, it's like a snapshot of an emotional state. It doesn't really have a narrative arc to it. So it certainly got a musical oomph, but it, again, just doesn't quite add up to anything more than a moment of cool. It's kind of like a weaker version of Kiss's 1976 song, God of Thunder. Track number 3 is called The Freak. It could be interpreted as an anthem of rock and roll rebelliousness, and quite possibly a reference to Paul Stanley's struggles growing up, where he was bullied for being born with microtia, that is, one of his ears was underdeveloped and it was physically obvious. And that's kind of cool subject and matter to add to the Kiss catalog. It's nice to have a sort of confessional, more serious song still put in that sort of dark, cool rock and roll language. But that wall of sound production, that soupy hard rock sound, I think sometimes it just overwhelms the song and it doesn't quite get to be as beautiful, resonant, and unique as it has the potential to be. Track number 4 is called Back to the Stone Age. This once again sees Gene Simmons embodying his demon persona, kind of like track 2, The Wall of Sound. It's him sort of re-exploring the kind of feel he had on the song God of Thunder, and it's a cool mix of sort of nature escapism with his dark persona. Track number 5 is called Shout Mercy. So we're back to Stanley, and even though Stanley has been happily married for quite some time, this is seemingly nostalgia for his earlier days of having a lot of one-night stands with a bit of Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil, woo-woos mixed in there. But still, it's a very heavy song. Again, that Phil Spector wall of sound meets hard rock, and the noise just gets to be a bit too much. Track number 6 is called Long Way Down. This is a vaguely psychedelic and also vaguely religious sounding song. There's a line that goes, "And I know this life makes fools of wise men, kings, and thieves." So, hinting at the idea of judgment and this life versus the next life. I wonder what exactly Paul Stanley is getting at here, because from my understanding, he's not a particularly religious person. He does refer at the end of his autobiography to belief in God, but it's a belief in a Jewish God and still a fairly spiritual, not religious interpretation of the. So maybe this song is just channeling the influence of old-time gospel music and rock and roll. It's not actually expressing Paul Stanley's theological view. Track number 7 is called Eat Your Heart Out. So we're back to Gene Simmons, and it kind of just sounds like a rewrite of the Kiss classic Lick It Up. Maybe not as melodic and memorable as the original, but it's the same kind of idea. Crass metaphor, band having fun, mix of hard rock and a bit of sonic brightness, thanks to a very prominent cowbell. Track number 8 is The Devil Is Me. So this is Gene Simmons again, and yet another song channeling his God of Thunder feel. Kind of like Long Way Down, there's a bit of religious heaven and hell imagery to this one, but I find this one a bit more enjoyable because with Simmons taking the lead, it becomes a bit more playful. It's this alternative interpretation where rather than the devil simply being a tempter, the singer finds himself becoming the devil, embodying the devil. Track number 9 is called Out of This World. So I mentioned in my long, rambly introduction that rather than simply replacing Ace Frehley and Peter Criss in the way previous lead guitarists and drummers in the band had done, Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer were asked to embody them. We have a song here written and sung by Thayer, and he's going out of his way to create an outer space song, something I don't think Kiss really did before when Ace Frehley actually was in the band. So he's trying to really play up Ace Frehley's spaceman persona. And while you can tell it's not Ace singing, Tommy's voice has more muscle to it. He tries to bring in a bit of Ace Frehley's stoner, cool sound to his delivery. So I don't know, it's a cleanly produced, catchy song. I find the Tommy Thayer song and the Eric Singer song that comes next, it's a better balance with the rock production. You know, you might expect the lead guitarist and the drummer to be the ones who really like overly loud hard rock, but no, these songs are actually a nice volume for me who likes things toned down a little bit. And so track number 10, not 10, is called All for the Love of Rock and Roll. It's written by Paul Stanley, but Eric Singer, the drummer, is the singer. And just as Tommy used a song to embody Ace Frehley's spaceman persona, Eric was clearly given the chance of singing a song that Peter Criss likely would have sung if he was still in the band. Now, he's not going out of his way to include cat imagery in the way Tommy Thayer went out of his way to include space imagery in his song, but I suppose you could say there's a kind of metaphorical cat, you know, I'm the cool alley cat of the streets thing kind of going on with the lyrics. And it's just, you know, a tightly recorded blues rocker with some fun lines in there. That's when you notice there's a ring on her finger. That's when she tells you she's single tonight. Track number 11 is called Take Me Down Below. What I really like about this one is that the lead vocals alternate between Simmons and Stanley. You'll often hear them singing in harmony on choruses, for example, but usually just one of them will do the lead vocals on a song, allowing the song to sound thoroughly like a Simmons song or thoroughly like a Stanley song. And here they truly act as a team, and I also think this is one of the melodically stronger songs. And the album ends with a song called Last Chance. And this one kind of left me with a similar feeling to Hell or Hallelujah, where it doesn't quite arc, it doesn't commit to one strong feeling or another, but I did like it a little better. The production was a little more Halloweeny.
As the title of the song suggests, it could be interpreted as the last Kiss song ever. But then again, the lack of urgency and drama in the actual performance suggests that it's probably not actually meant to be the last Kiss song, and it's almost as if it was given that title to entertain the idea but not take it too seriously.
So, in summation, anytime a band's been around for a while and people love their classic songs, it can be hard for them to top that. That said, I do think there were some songs on here that were pretty solid, pretty fun to listen to. The first maybe being Back to the Stone Age. I thought that Tommy and Eric's songs were solid. You know, if you have like an extended greatest hits kind of box set, I feel like you could represent them through those songs. And honestly, Take Me Down Below could be a new Kiss favorite. This album, it can be frustrating at times. I feel like there's this contradiction with Kiss where Paul Stanley in particular, he likes really hard rock music and that tempted him to this really loud production, but that's not what I and I imagine a lot of Kiss fans like out of him. I like that Paul Stanley has a melodic voice, that their classic albums did have a range of sounds, you know, some hard rock, some less so. So I'm not crazy about how hard rock focused this album is, how loud the playing gets on some of the songs, but there's still a lot of fun moments on here. So let me know your thoughts on the Monster album and the evolution of Kiss more broadly. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.